Hi, welcome to the small shed. This week we're back on the bus bunk doing a bit of detailing work. See you in a minute. Now, so far on the bed, what I've been trying to do is get the basic structure, the internal parts all done, routed up and sorted, and we've seen that happen. Now it's time to start to move on to the outer skin. There are two layers to this, so the sides will be 36mm thick. And the outer sides have got all the detailing on, the strapping on the side of the bus, and we're moving on to things like wheels and mud guards, that sort of thing. So join me, if you like, in the garage and out in the drive to see how we get on with doing some of that work. So having got the lower side sorted, it was time to move on to the upper deck effectively and get all those bits detailed. There are two panels that sort of overlap to give it a bit of strength. You've got one panel slightly set back below the other one, and these are all bolted together so that you end up with a sheet that's about 1400mm high, which you couldn't get out of a normal 8x4 sheet of timber otherwise. And I've just essentially the same as before, cut them out with jigsaw. The outer panel is got the windows cut out, the inner panel is plain so that no one can get legs falling out of bed or anything, or get their head stuck. So you essentially got a sealed in a window with a backing piece on it. Little Festool sander getting a work out, and then the two bits are bolted together. And to do that, all I've done is essentially just drilled a lot of holes. The whole thing was marked out with the sort of seam lines on the body of the bus, and I then marked out where all the screws could go. And when they're done, you just stick the little threaded inserts in, and this gives you pretty much a finished side to the bus. That's got the two main sides finished, and really that is slightly deceptive because most of the work is actually, as ever, in the detail. Those two sides are essentially 4 pieces of MDF, whereas in one back wheel there are 5 pieces, and they're all quite complex. They've got circles cut, and they've got roundovers on them, and they've got holes drilled in and all sorts. So I think that's where I'd underestimated the complexity of the build, really, in that it's easy to get the big things done like the sides, but all of the small details are the things that have taken the time and made the mess. I mean, this routing of the roundovers has given me about 3 sacks full of MDF dust, and along with all the offcuts, it's just created an awful lot of waste. I've used a little Ryobi router for the grooves. Just got a very small V-bit in the end of it that just gives a little nick to the surface of the timber or the MDF to put these lines in. But that's where, again, a lot of the work was, getting them all right and making sure you didn't get tapering lines and lines that went where they shouldn't go. They all had to stop in certain places, and make sure they were all 20mm apart, because otherwise then you'd have had bolt holes or bolt heads in the wrong places and sticking through lines and all sorts. So they were just given a very quick sand up. That got me the most of the detail on the side. What I've tended to do with the long run is to actually start at the very finish of the run just put a router groove in for the last 3 or 4 inches, and then that way when you're running along with the router you can sort of hear a change in tone as it stops actually cutting, and it gives you a warning well before you get to the end of the groove that you're already at the end, because that last bit has already been done for you. Next then was to start and get on with more of the circle cutting items, which I was using the Katsu for. Mainly it was things like the wheel arches, which again the same centre as the wheels, so therefore you could put the little Banggood jig in the same centre hole and get a slightly larger diameter, and you'd get the shape of the wheel arch done. So pretty much the same story with the front of the bus as well. An awful lot of different pieces making up the one front panel, and this is only the lower front panel that has got pieces that shape the bonnet, pieces that shape the grille, pieces that shape the grille surround, and they've all had to be cut out, routed up. A lot of them are repeat sizes, so again you can do this business of getting one and then routering a copy of it, but some of them are slightly different in size, and that complicates the issue as well. Most of the cutout work has been done with the jigsaw. Once or twice I've had a problem with it, that the blade isn't always dead vertical. If you put any strain on it, it can cut at a slight angle, but most of these pieces were cut with the jigsaw pretty much to the line, and then just tidied up with the little Shinto rasp that I've got to get the finish, because again there's nothing, you can't really get in much with sanders or anything into some of these corners. Again, circle cutter jig out to do the headlights, which again are very much like the wheel centres. It's the same thing. I've had to cut 6 of these pieces, but these 2 are for the headlights. You can see all the dust on the floor underneath that had to be cleaned up every night. Most of it's gone on my back, up the wall, stuck. I've had to brush the brickwork down as well, and an awful lot of it went into the garage as well, not to mention the neighbours' cars. So here we've got the finished components for the front panel, if you like. There's the basic front of the bus that will screw together between the sides. Then there's a panel goes on the front of that, which again locks into the sides slightly differently to give it a bit more strength in the join. And there's a front radiator surround, goes on top of that, and a grille on top of that, and then 2 headlights, and it is starting to look something like the front of a Routemaster. And we're back on cutting the wheel centres out with the circle cutting jig, getting it pretty much ready to start and think about how it's all going to go together at the end. And then you get some idea of the way the whole thing goes together with the various layers to get a relief on the side of the bus then. So there we are, we've got on quite well I think now with it. We've got to the stage pretty much now where it's all the parts are made, shaped and pretty much rough detailed. I've still got to resolve the front and the back properly, but I'm going to do that when the whole thing is put together, because there comes a point when you start to make lots of individual parts that should fit together. If you haven't got a CNC machine, they probably won't. So what I'm starting to do now is to build up next the main structure, put the sides on, get the framework all done, and then start and try and fit the front and the back panels in situ. So next time we do anything, we'll be doing a test build, if you like, to see how the whole thing will look. Hope it was of interest. Look forward to seeing you next week. We'll be doing something different, I hope, and I'll see you then. Bye.